You know, I just made this beautiful cup of Earl Grey tea, but it's a black tea. Oh man, you know, the caffeine. I gotta think about the caffeine in black tea. I guess what I should really do is walk away from this black tea and go make a cup of something that has less caffeine. Well, maybe a white tea. Oh, I really wanted this black tea. Hi everybody. Diane here from California Tea Herbal. And today's subject is a naughty one. Not naughty like bad, but naughty. K-N-O-T-T-Y, like full of knots and turns and twists. It's kind of one that's hard to pin down, to be honest with you, and I've heard lots of opinions, but I'm going mainly on research by people I really respect. Number one, Nigel Melican, probably one of the very top authorities on tea science and the technical part of the tea industry. He has founded and owns a company called Teacraft, and so we've done a lot of reading on Nigel's work, and then my husband has done years of research on things like the amino acid caffeine effect on tea and how they relate and so forth. It's really fun, and I'm not a scientific type, but I enjoy it. So let's dispel some myths and let's go inside and talk about tea and caffeine. Alright everyone, let's do a little quick rundown on the caffeine content in your cup. And we're talking about caffeine content. Obviously, that tea has to be infused. That caffeine it's in the leaf and it's going to stay in the leaf until you put that in hot water and get it out. Now, there are lots of factors about what makes up the caffeine content in your cup as far as how much there is in there. And you've probably heard that a 30-second wash or a 30-second steep and then throw away that water will take out most of the caffeine. That is not true according to our best respected authorities like Nigel Melican. And like I said, I will put a link to Nigel's discussion of this on a blog in the description. There are minor factors that influence caffeine content. So let's go on these minor factors, and they are minor. The plant itself, is it an old plant, a young plant? Where's the origin of that plant? The leaves, are you picking the newest leaves, those top leaves that have just come out, or are you picking older leaves? Is it grown in the shade or is it grown in the sun? When is it picked? How is it grown? What were the conditions? And as far as type of tea, well, matcha is said to be slightly higher, but then again, you consume the whole leaf, whereas with other teas, you infuse the leaf and the liquid is all you drink. You don't consume the whole leaf. So these would be more or less minor factors that would not affect the amount of caffeine in more than a minor way. But the major factors about caffeine is not whether it's a white or a black tea. The major factors are how is it brewed and how long is it brewed, what water temperature, how much brewing time. So if you take a green tea and you brew that tea, because the tea is an unprocessed, unoxidized, let's say, mostly unoxidized tea, it will be, slightly different. And the major factor in determining that for any tea is going to be water temperature and brewing time, with an emphasis on brewing time. And Nigel Melican will break that down for you, actually, how much caffeine is taken out by brewing times in the article I'm linking. Now, we'll move on, and we're going to see how caffeine and amino acids interact or influence your levels and taste. All right, friends, now this is a chart that my husband has made that is super simple. Even I can understand this. You should know, first of all, that caffeine causes bitterness. and that basically the amino acids slash flavonoids slash flavor, it kind of all goes together. So you want that great flavor, but you do not want the bitterness. Now we have a simple chart above, and on that the caffeine will be the straight line, the amino acid flavonoid effect will be the broken line, and you will see what happens here. We have something called a sweet point or a sweet spot where they will pretty much meet, so to speak, at a certain time of brewing, and that will be when you get your maximum taste. Now, of course, you know that you're going to brew a black tea longer than you're going to brew a green tea. So we're going to basically look at a black tea here. Now, the recommended time for a black tea is between 3 and 4 minutes in general. And so we always speak in general terms here so we don't get into trouble. But let me point this out to you. We'll start here, and let me get my camera and my pen together. We'll start here at 0 minutes, and we've got the caffeine bitterness, and we've got the amino acid flavonoid flavor effect. And so we want to get out the caffeine and get out those flavonoids, and we want them to intersect, and on a black tea they intersect at about 3.5 minutes or so. You're going to get optimum flavor and, you know, as little caffeine as possible. Now, right about here at these sweet spots on the recommended brewing times and temps for any type of tea, you're going to be getting about 50% of the caffeine out at that point, and you are also going to get about 90% of the flavor will be there. At this point, when you go past that brewing time that you should do per tea type, you're going to start kind of just washing out on the flavor, whereas you can see that the bitterness is going to keep on pumping as that caffeine continues to come out, and you're going to hit bitterness. With green teas, you're going to hit bitterness after 2.5 minutes or so. You'll start tasting bitterness, whereas a black tea you can go up to 5. But again, I hope this is helpful. So we're showing a black tea, a simple chart, that the sweet spot for getting the most flavor and the least caffeine will be about 3.5 minutes at the suggested temperature. And so we have that suggested temperature and tutorials on that in other videos and more to come. All right, the caffeine effect in tea, caffeine and amino acids, and where and why you want to brew them suggested times. That is the sweet spot. And so now that we have done a very short generalization and tutorial on caffeine and how you can't just wash it out in 30 seconds, and how you want to do exactly what the instructions say per type of tea when you're brewing, and why, so you get maximum flavor and the most caffeine that's going to come out before it becomes bitter by going too long. There are decaf teas. We only offer one. They're very hard to find, good decaf teas, so we do an Assam, and you can find that on calteas.com. But I want to show you how commercial processing is done to get the caffeine out of tea. Basically 4 methods. Number 1, be water or Swiss water decaffeination, also done to coffee beans. Number 2, CO2. And number 3, methylene chloride. And then number 4, ethyl acetate. Those last 2 sound horrific to me, and I'm sure they do to you. I will tell you that a lot of the large tea companies use them. They've been around in the industry for a very long time, and you will be told that basically they are, fine. You'll have to make your decisions and really read up on each one. But I would say most of the really good artisanal or smaller tea companies pretty much insist, if they're going to carry a decaffeinated tea, that it be done with CO2. And why is that instead of water? Because water sounds so harmless, and it is. The water tends to also water down flavor, at least some people do believe that You know, we just prefer CO2 if we're going to carry anything decaf. But I would like to suggest that you leave the tea alone if possible. If you really want decaf tea, yes, it's available. But if you don't want, can't have, or want to cut down on caffeine, I would suggest you really think about herbals rather than tea. And we have a video on that. It's tea or herbal, and so it's one of our earlier videos. But yes, to me, the natural way, or the way that it comes out of the ground, is always the best. All right, the 4 methods: water, CO2, methylene chloride, and ethyl acetate. Friends, I want to mention one more thing, and that is that it would take about 15 minutes for all of the caffeine to have infused out of that leaf. And so now you can see that there's just no way that by a quick brew you are going to remove all of the caffeine from tea without it becoming undrinkable for the bitterness. So again, at a sweet spot, the best place to brew each type of tea, you'll find that you have about 50% of the caffeine removed and about 90% of the flavor. But don't wait 15 minutes to get all that caffeine out. And in one of our very close upcoming videos, we're going to do the 4 main ways that tea is decaffeinated in the commercial world. But that's for another day. So thanks so much for listening. We ask you to subscribe, like, and tell your friends about this. And remember, we sell about 60 to 70 teas and herbals on our website, calteas.com. And we just think that we've collected an amazing array of delicious teas and herbals.